let's just start with a quick introduction. If you could say your name and what kind of occupation you're currently in, and then maybe a little brief description of what it is that you do and the types of people that you work with your job. So, Mike, let's start with you.
Now, can you hear me?
Yep.
Still not up to date with technology. I'm probably the oldest on this panel. Mike Zahar, I graduated from St. John's in 2006. Natural science major, kind of emphasis in biology. I practice chiropractic in Brainerd at Links Chiropractic. In terms of like what patients I see, who I kind of work with, it really, it's anybody with a spine, you know, that's all we really do. So I see infants to elderly people. I would probably say I see more athletes, especially this time of year. I help coach football at our high school too. So I see a lot of our you know, our fall athletes this time of year. So we're just kind of wrapping up the fall season. So they're starting to dwindle out of the clinic now.
Marie, how about you?
Hi, everybody. My name is Marie Boo. I graduated in 2011, majored in biology, and I did a double minor in psychology and sports medicine before the exercise science and sports science or sports studies was a major. I currently work at Stanford University in California, work with our Department of Athletics. So I see all of our student athletes, so pretty much just Division I athletes from age 18 to 22, 23. Occasionally, if we have a former athlete who's coming back, I'll work with them if they're a professional athlete but still in sports. So that's my little niche here.
Andrea?
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Madison. I graduated in 2013, and actually Marie was like one of my role models when I was at school. So hi again. So anyways, I work at Children's Theraplay. It's an outpatient pediatric, so 0 to 18 is my age range. I see kids with specifically a lot of kids that are in the foster care system to foster to adopt. So a lot of like those trauma-informed care stuff, that's what I do. And I'm a physical therapist, sorry. And I also own my own cash-based clinic that's based out of my home. And that I'll see anyone from any age. So that just, yeah, that's what I do. And sorry that I'm in the car. I was hoping to be at home, but my son woke up early from his nap. And so it's just better if I'm not there. So here I am. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with one of the questions, and actually I'll kind of clump two questions together. So the premise of the exercise and health science course is in part to explore the field of exercise science, but also to explore careers associated with exercise and health. And so a lot of the students in the course are really in that discernment process of thinking about all the different options that are available to them. So how did you decide which career field you wanted to pursue, and when did you make that decision? And then the second part, or the second question, was, do you have any advice for somebody who is just kind of starting off and considering the exercise and health related fields and is not sure what they want to do? And feel free to unmute and just jump in and we'll just work back and forth.
I can start. So I kind of blindly got into physical therapy, actually. Everyone told me that I should do it. And so I was like, all right, let's start taking the prereqs for it. And then it came time, it was about my junior year or so, was getting observation hours that are required to go to PT school, and did a couple different settings. And I realized I absolutely hated it, and it seemed mind-numbingly boring to me. And I got a little nervous. I was like, oh shoot, I'm already in my junior year. What am I going to do now? And I was talking to different people and kind of what I wanted to do was sports. And so I got involved and shadowed somebody who was in a sports medicine clinic with PT. Previously, I was in a lot of outpatient. I did some Peds, which was a lot more fun, and then a skilled nursing facility. So finally got into the sports world. And luckily, the PT that I was with actually had some PT students with her at the time. And so she was challenging them to say, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? What are you thinking about next? What happens if you do too much? What are you going to regress to? And it wasn't until that moment that I realized, oh, there's actually a lot of thought that goes into this and a lot of knowledge and planning that I didn't see in some of the other settings that I had observed. And so at that point, I was like, okay, this is perfect. This actually is what I want to do. And let's dive in. So I would say really explore, observe as many people as you can, talk to as many people as you can. And even if you're feeling like there's something that you are really interested in, seeing if there's different avenues or different specialty areas within that. That'll be my advice.
Yeah, oh, Mike, you can go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah,
okay.
Do it.
Sorry about that. Going through school at St. John's, I knew I wanted to get into the medical field. And up until about my junior year, I was really wanted to get into dentistry. And it happened, a sports injury. I played football at St. John's. We had a good transfer coming from St. Cloud State, a big, tall receiver. And I played defensive back. And a high pass came up over the middle during 2 days. I went up to break it up and kind of came down awkwardly and fell on my hip, low back. Is Scott Beerscheid, is he still at St. John's? Yes. So I spent a couple days, getting nursed by him, which excellent guy, great practitioner, and just wasn't getting better. And he said, you know what, you should go see this chiropractor in Sartell and have him test you, look at you. And I did, and he adjusted me a couple times, and I was like back to normal. Even felt probably better than I did before. And that whole year, I was just amazed at how much better I could move and be a defensive back and just perform. So that just kind of stuck with me. And then I think throughout my senior year, I kind of changed avenues, and I wanted to do the chiropractic route. You can incorporate sports medicine into that and work with athletes. So that's kind of why I chose to go the route I went. And to piggyback off of what Marie said about just kind of, having that feeling and just, oh, this is what I want to do. I kind of had that moment. So I would encourage you young students out there to shadow, explore, research until you kind of have that moment, because that'll be your calling.
Yeah, especially I would highly piggyback off of shadowing. And I understand right now with COVID, shadowing's really hard. And there's been new Medicare laws that are kind of coming in that are stopping my clinic, at least right now, from shadowing. But it doesn't mean I would honestly reach out because we are doing different things to help pre-PT students to still see what we're doing. So don't have COVID be a factor to not reach out. But to backtrack, how I got into PT was everyone, like Marie said, everyone told me I should do it growing up, but I knew I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but with also a career. So how do you do that? And how can you there's so many jobs, wonderful jobs out there, but they go more than the 40 hours a week. And it's not like I don't think about my patients all the time, but I wanted something where I could do both and drop down to part-time and then back up and kind of have that flexibility in my life and still make a pretty decent income. So that was one of my big factors of thinking about why PT versus MD. And that just was my personal preference. And that started actually my sophomore year because I came in as being a physics major. And that just didn't suit me very well. So then I switched to bio. And so, yeah, that was kind of my journey.
Awesome. So after each kind of set of questions, what I'll do is I'll just look out into the audience here and ask, do you have any questions at this point for our panelists? And if not, then what I'll do is I'll just keep going down my list of questions that y'all submitted. And but again, please feel free to ask as we go along, okay? All right, so next question is to kind of think back on your experiences here at St. Ben's and St. John's. Which course or which experience do you think was most helpful in terms of helping you figure out what you want to do? And what do you wish you would have done that you didn't do? And it isn't, and you can even expand it out beyond the career part, but what types of things do you wish you would have done that you didn't necessarily do? Okay.
I can start this one. I worked in the athletic training room at St. Ben's. That's where I met Marie. But that was like a huge experience with learning that I really did like working with athletes and students and helping them rehab whatever was going on. But then I think a huge experience, I thought study abroad was a life changer for myself. One thing I wish I would have done is take like a business class or even a communications class or marketing, something that's just like completely outside of the health sciences and the bio world. Because now I've started my own business and it's just using some of the terminology and just kind of having a little bit of a backbone in it. Yeah, you get it one class in PT school with some of the stuff, but it just would have been nice to have more than one course in it that I don't have to seek out right now myself. So that's mine.
I can go next. I will piggyback off of Andrea's. I think one of the most impactful experience that I had was working in the training room, just being able to be completely integrated into that and working in it day in and day out. And I never felt like I was working. That was one of the most fun times I had, and I learned so much. And I just felt like, again, it could just like feel like that was the right fit for what I wanted to do. Another thing that I would say would be the kinesiology course actually that you taught, Don, was probably one of the most challenging courses that I took in my entire undergrad, but it set me up so much better when I was in PT school, and having that thought process and the critical thinking going beyond just rote memorization, which I got by with in usually in biology classes that I was in, but I had to get a lot more, like I said, critical thinking, and then a lot more intimate understanding of movement, which helped me a lot. And then I would say if I could do something, I think taking a class in computer programming or computer science would be really helpful. Look, kind of getting into different things and kind of where the world and technology is going. I've taken a few classes just on my own with those, and it's like learning a whole new language. It's very challenging, but I think it might be a good class to think about.
I'd say a couple experiences that were pretty rewarding at St. John's for me was being involved with a student athletic advisory committee. It's kind of like a student council, but more just generated with student athletes. I learned a great deal there, confidence, team building, leadership, all that sort of stuff. I'd worked in the fitness center too throughout my time there, and just being around, sports nutrition, healthy exercise stuff, things like that just kind of helped navigate my path, and being involved with athletics too. I played football and baseball there. So that's one of the things I wish I would have done, was to go on a study abroad trip. All my friends did that, but because I had a fall sport and a spring sport, I was not able to do that for the first couple of years anyway. And then, things to help prepare for your career nowadays, like I wish I would be more tech savvy. There's so much marketing that can be done, Instagram and social media and Facebook and all that stuff. And it's not really my generation you know, to know all that stuff. It's more yours. So yeah, I'm sure you guys are more comfortable using those tools, but I'm not. So I'm trying to like catch up actually right now as that sort of marketing strategy is changing.
And so excellent comments. And just so for the students in the room, there are still opportunities to be involved in these things. There are still sports medicine assistants that are being hired at St. Ben's and at St. John's in the athletic training room. And over at St. John's, working with Justin Rost, who's now the strength and conditioning coach over there, working with the athletes, designing and implementing exercise programs. Outstanding. So if you have the opportunity to do those things, please seek them out. So, questions? Yeah.
I have a question for Andrea. You talked about your own business. So, like, I just want to know what drove you to want to open like your own clinic, or like what point of your career did you decide that? Just we talked about how you didn't really take very many business classes here.
So, Andrea, I'll just repeat the question, and hopefully I'll get it exactly right. But so, what drove you to start your own business, especially since you didn't really have a business background? What got you to do that?
So I like to have my fingers in more than one thing at one time. I've never had just one job. And so I went down to part-time when I had my son in 2020. That's a whole nother story, but like having a child in a pandemic, wow. But anyways, so then I dropped down to 20 hours at my kids clinic, and I was working at this awesome clinic called Fix It Physical Therapy. But all of a sudden, just like life happened, and some of those clients wanted to come and keep seeing me, but I didn't want to take anyone from Fix It just because I love that company so much. But then I had friends that were just my friends, and that they would come to see me at Fix It. So it kind of just like organically happened that I just opened a business out of my home. So how did I do it? I actually just used all my mentors, all my friends that are business owners, and everything about life is networking. So really build your networking pool. And that's how I had no idea how to sign up or get it, like my name, and, to go through the government stuff and all that. I'm still trying to figure out taxes. So it's a learning process, but it's going really well. I'll let you know in a year. But yeah.
Other questions? Okay, so we'll continue on down here. So this is a set of questions that I tell students to ask anytime they're going to do an informational interview with somebody who's the career they're interested in. What's the best part of your job? And what is the part that if you could wave your magic wand and change or fix, what would that be?
I can go first, I guess.
Sure.
If I could just tell you right now, the part I'd change or fix is health insurance. And as Andrea said, I think she said she had a cash practice with physical therapy. Would be the easiest way to go. And we do that kind of all aspects at our clinic. I mean, there's cash patients, there's insurance patients, there's Medicare patients, there's work comp, there's auto claims. So you have to kind of know how to navigate everything. But yeah, there's days where you just want to rack your head over insurance. So that part, if I could change that, I would. What was the other part of the question, Don?
What's the best part?
No, the best part, obviously. The best part is getting a patient out of acute pain. And if they're new to chiropractic and they've never been to one before and they're really scared to get adjusted for the first time, it's not a scary thing. But, everybody thinks of a chiropractor as, jarring your bones or making you crack. Well, you're adjusting a vertebrae to take pressure off a nerve. That's it. And like this morning, I just had an 81-year-old. He's new to chiropractic, and he had hurt his back lifting a deer into the back of his truck this past weekend, and did one adjustment, and walking out. He's like, I'm amazed, that was awesome, and gave me a hug. So, you know, little things like that. I'm 10 years into practice, so yeah, those things dwindle as the more you're in it, but it, you know, makes you feel good, puts a smile on your face and reminds you why you joined this profession.
All right, I'll go next. The one thing I would take out of my job is having to call CPS. I know it's super important, but it's very hard. And I don't, you know, you never want to call Child Protective Services on anyone. But I mean, it's always necessary. And in the end, it's a good thing because then the kids are getting the help that they need. But it's very hard. Then the best part is just seeing those same exact kids build the resilience, and, you know, really taking on life that they've already done way too much in their life. You know, they've gone through so much, and they like see you as one of those, you know, role models for them. And that's a really big win at the same time. So, you know, same kid, same story, but there's lows and highs of all of it. And sometimes I really wish I could just foster them myself, but that would be a lot of kids. So, yeah.
All right, I'm fortunate I don't have to deal with insurance, which is a big plus, but I feel your pain with that, Mike, when I used to have to deal with insurance. I would say if I could change one thing, it would be my hours can get long sometimes. So depending on what's going on, what time of season it is, we have to see all of our athletes and make sure that they're getting better. If there's, like right now, if say on a Sunday night, one of our playing a volleyball game and one of the volleyball athletes gets a head injury, I have to figure out how to get them in the next day for a concussion eval. Or if it's track season and we have a meet coming up, have to potentially work long hours to get everybody in and get everybody seen, and then communicate all of that with the athletic trainer, the strength coach, their actual coach, any type of referrals that might need to be for sports psychology, anything like that. So it can get to be long hours. But the best part of my job is working with our athletes. They're always so full of energy. They're fun. They're excited about what they're doing. And it's very rewarding to watch them get back and play their sport. Both, even if it's just getting back to practice for the first time after a long injury, or this past like Olympics, we had a couple athletes in the Olympics that I worked with. That was fun to watch them compete. I would wake up at 4 a.m. to watch them win gold or whatever it may be. So that was really fun. It's very rewarding to know that you had a little bit of a hand in that, but it definitely takes a village when it comes to high level athletics.
Again, questions? Yes. Sure. I know. Marie, she wants, one of the students wants to know if she can ask you a specific question about an athlete.
I probably cannot divulge any specifics due to HIPAA.
There is probably the case, yes. So, no, that's what I figured. So. Any other questions? Yeah.
I know that Marie said that like it takes a village. How does her role differ from like other people in the athletics?
Awesome. Okay, great question. So, Marie, you say that it takes a village. What is your role in relationship to the roles of other people in the athletic department, athletic trainers as an example? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So my role is as a physical therapist to do obviously rehab. So how we have it set up is any long-term injuries, any surgeries, any complex injuries that aren't getting better, the athletic trainer will refer to physical therapy. And so we're always working in conjunction with all the other disciplines. So I'm constantly emailing or running across the street to chat with our athletic trainers, our strength coaches, like I said, sports psych, nutrition, whoever it may be. And we are always coming together to figure out what's best for the athlete. So usually if the athlete, say, has a long-term injury, they'll see me 3 times a week. They'll see their athletic trainer 2 to 3 times a week. They'll lift 2 to 3 times a week. They might be seeing nutrition. They might be seeing sports psych. They might be doing all these other things. And so we need to be in constant communication and collaboration to make sure that we're not all doing the same exact thing, and that we're doing what's best for the athlete and complementing each other.
Great. Yeah. Great question. Okay, so how do you stay up to date in your field? Fields evolve. How do you go about doing that?
So we all have to take continuing education courses. It's state by state for at least physical therapy. So Minnesota, it's 20 CEs every 2 years, plus an ethics course. But like there's conferences, there's I'm a part of American APTA, American Physical Therapy Association. I also am a part of the Pediatric Association. So you get journals every month. There's journal talks as well, and there's just a lot of information that you'll just get it if you're if you become part of the club, which is the association. And then I'm sure Marie can go off. She probably gets a lot of stuff at Stanford.
Yeah, so I'm a part of, like Andrea said, similar, the APTA as well as the sports section of the APTA. And then all sorts of conferences. I like to, when I'm hanging out with friends and colleagues at conferences, ask them what courses that they've thought have been the most helpful. And I also try to do a lot and kind of have at least a barometer on what other fields are doing. So I'm also part of the National Strength and Conditioning Association. So I get some of their journals. You could do things like following people on social media or LinkedIn. You can get new articles that way as well. But it definitely, it's really important to stay on top of things. So it's good to be organized. Sometimes it takes me a few months to get to all the research articles, but as long as you can get to it, and you're not years and years behind, you're doing well.
Yeah, same for me. Continuing education courses, chiropractors have to do, I think, 20 hours yearly, and then 3 radiology and 1 professional boundary course. But I think on average I do 1 seminar a month. It's usually only 2 or 3 hours. Sometimes they're live, sometimes they're webinars. So that's a good tool. About 4 or 5 years ago, I got my certified chiropractic sports practitioner. And with that, you have to do a certain amount of CE credits too, and you're always getting monthly emails, research articles, things like that to stay fresh with. And along with that, to have that certification, you have to have your basic life support. So whatever field you're looking at getting into, I'd recommend just getting that and having it, because it's very valuable. It takes maybe 2 hours, and you have to do once every 2 years just to stay fresh and keep it active. So I really highly recommend doing that.
Okay. Well, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So how would you handle a situation where the patient comes in that has a diagnosis that's unfamiliar to you, or that it's not necessarily in your wheelhouse for your specialty area?
Do I know about this diagnosis before they get in, or they show up and I'm seeing them right then and there? So that's 2 different answers.
Right then and there is the intent, yes.
Oh, I mean, every person's a human being, and everyone has very similar but different structures. And so I just kind of go with whatever I can do safely for that time period. And then I re-educate and educate myself, and then I'll progress them. But in eval, you kind of just have to get the background information. You don't have to get everything right away. You just have to start the client therapist relationship. That's really key to build that trust and just to try to start everything. But diagnoses don't scare me at all. So it can be anything.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same thing. First you do no harm, if you can safely treat them or evaluate it, then you can do that. Otherwise, I work with 2 other doctors here. Sometimes we'll piggyback ideas off each other. And, there's always the referral network you can tap into if it's out of your scope.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo that. First thing you have to make sure is that they're safe. I am always asking my coworkers to pick their brain and vice versa. So it's you always want to be able to collaborate with other people, and then if worse comes to worse, always refer elsewhere.
I think one of the biggest things with being in this field, with any of our professions, is all of us really work as a team. There's not just one therapist or one chiropractic doctor or any, everyone works together. So that's a huge part too.
All right, I'm going to go to my list here. So before I asked about the best part of your job, the worst part of your job, next question really is about where's your job going? What do you see on the horizon for your particular career field, say in 5, 10, 15 years? What's coming down the line?
Well, for me, working in trauma-informed care and doing it prior to, I've been doing it since before the pandemic started, I really think you're going to see a lot more kids needing more of that type of style of input and just educating more therapists on how to treat. But we're not psychologists, so we're not treating the brain per se with the mental aspect, but trauma is stored in your biology, not your psychology. So it is a body aspect as well. And we see decreased balance and coordination just with extra stress in those kiddos' lives. So I think that's going to be a big part just because of the pandemic. And so, we're starting to teach courses just so that the PT world can kind of jump on. It's starting, but it's not all the way there yet.
In the college and professional sports here, I think everything is going towards technology. More and more technology with data, and whether it be used in the weight room with things like velocity-based training and force plates, things like that, as well as on field with GPS data. There's sports is just becoming so data driven, and more technology gives you more data. So it's interesting to see where it's all going.
Well, for me, I kind of see 2 types of patients. You get your acute injury or acute care patients or your wellness patients. Insurance-based stuff is going less and less towards chiropractic. So you can always see acute people that way. But the last 5 or 6 years, I think my patient base has gotten more towards wellness, which I think is a kind of direct reflection on maybe a practitioner's philosophy. And I just kind of I stress the importance of wellness care. So I see a lot of families with their kids once a month, type of patients. So there'll always be people with back and neck pain. So it's kind of the same for me. There's not really a whole lot of technology. We just use our hands and a table.
Again, questions? So another one of the questions, you've mentioned multiple times working with individuals and sometimes with families. How does psychology come into play in what you do? And would you recommend students as undergrads take courses in psychology in preparation for going into like the healthcare fields?
Psychology plays a huge role in my setting, especially. I can probably say everyone else feels the same, but whether it be for better or worse, if somebody recently has an injury and they're away from the team for a little bit, that can definitely mess with their psyche a little bit, or coming back from an injury and they're not feeling 100% confident in something. We're lucky enough to have an entire department dedicated to sports psychology, as well as attached to a hospital. It has any resource we have available. But on a day-to-day sense, I'm always interacting with my athletes, kind of reading them, figuring out where they're at mentally, and getting them ready, or needing to take a step back to let their kind of confidence and the mental side of things catch up to where they're at physically. So I would recommend any psych courses. Like I said, I was a psychology minor, and I think that was really helpful.
Yeah, I would second that too. A patient just recovering from an acute low back episode and they're worried about performing some kind of task. It's helpful to understand what the patient's feeling too, and having the confidence to I guess, implore them to get better on themselves and trust the process. That's a big part of the kind of what I do too. So yeah, I'd say it's highly important.
Yep, I agree. It's very important. You can't take the brain off the body. So it's always going to be there. And like what everyone has said, but just realizing where your client's at when they come in, and that's kind of, you have to shift. You have to use your clinical reasoning and thought process on what you're going to do that day based off how they present as well. So you could have this huge, beautiful plan, and sometimes it just goes out the window because of where that client comes in at. So, yep, it's a huge part. Highly recommend some classes. I got my psych minor too.
Let's kind of piggyback off that a little bit. So in this course, one of the things we talk about, we use the phrase client-centered empathy, but really your communication skills and really trying to understand the other person. And where and how did you develop those, and how important is that in your practice?
So one of the big things that we talk about in the pediatric world is co-regulation. So figuring out where you are versus where your client is, and you can really use your own your own regulation to help that person out as well because of mirror neurons. So where did I learn this? I think just over time shadowing and just like being involved in multiple different situations throughout my entire life, not just like in the health sciences, just like on a sports team, and like learning like different leadership qualities there than being an orientation leader and an orientation coordinator. Like there's just so many different ways you could learn that. It's just human interaction. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just through experience, and nothing really to add. Just that's kind of how I learned how to deal with patient interaction. Just stick with experience.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that, but definitely comes with both self-awareness as well as really focusing on who you're with and not trying to think about everything else you have going on, but being with that person and being present helps a lot.
So the question has to do with COVID, and how has it impacted what you do, and how do you think it will continue to impact what you're doing moving forward, longer term?
So I guess impact what we do, it hasn't really affected us too much, minus the mask wearing. Now we're pretty much back to normal, but I had to learn for the first month or two, I guess, of COVID. I definitely had to learn how to work from home and do telehealth visits, which is a whole new challenge when you're used to putting your hands on somebody on every single visit. So I think it's nice that that is now kind of, I think, a tool that all clinicians have in their toolbox to an extent. But hopefully we're back to normal now.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It didn't really affect our clinic a whole lot, right away. Obviously, it did, but outside of the mask wearing and increased sanitation and things like that, and just asking people to really, not come or schedule a visit if they were ill. But hopefully, we're rounding a corner and it's going away from that.
I wish I could say the same. It really affected our clinic. So we were on teletherapy. We used like one day because all of our kids, because the parents just didn't know at the start, right? So all the kids they were all canceled, not by us, but by the parents, right? So we went from being in clinic, we had one day to figure out telehealth, and then we were on telehealth for 6 months, full time. And then and we kept trying to open the doors, but the parents just weren't ready. And so, which is totally great and fine. Like our doors, telehealth stayed open, and we stayed really busy on it. But man, was that a challenge. That was just something else. I mean, how are you supposed to interact with like a 2-year-old on telehealth for an hour? Like, whew. I don't even support screen time. So yeah. But then now we're back to 75% in the clinic and 25% at home. And that 25% at home is telehealth hours. I only see now one kid consistently on telehealth instead of my hours are short, so it's only 4 hours. And so, yeah, hopefully we go fully back into the clinic. Our clinic is just not that big. And so they're really trying to just cut numbers down and try to keep families, like family pods, because we see a lot of siblings together. But yeah, it's been a struggle. And now with kids back in school, which is fantastic, we just get more cases, and then they have to quarantine because of exposures. So it's definitely, our clinic's been hit pretty hard, but we're still rolling. I still have my job, thank God, because I know a lot of people that were furloughed. So yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'm getting the 5-minute warning here. So I'd like to just ask one last question of our panelists. What advice would you give to students that are sitting here in the room in terms of career, in terms of life trajectory? If you could go back and talk to yourself when you were a first year or a sophomore student, what advice would you give?
First year, I can go first. I would encourage you to read every day, whether you like to or not. Make it a habit, really, because once you get to be my age, you're doing that anyway, and it makes it harder to break that habit. Do as much experience shadowing as you can, because there's no way you're going to know what field you want to get into unless you kind of get out and actually experience it. I did a lot of that with dentistry and oral surgery, and then chiropractic, and I just kind of found what I wanted to do that way. And that's what I would do. If you find something you want to do, reach for the stars and give it your all and never give up.
I would echo the, just observe as much as you can, get involved in anything that interests you, to try to figure out what path is right for you. And then I would also say, stay humble as you go throughout. There's always something to learn from every single person that you encounter. And just stay willing to learn and constantly learn. That's the other thing that will move you forward.
And I will say, just realize exactly what you want to do and not what your family members want you to do or your teammates or anyone else. Just figure out what you like to do, and go with your gut and your heart and your desires and just go after it. It's hard to make life decisions, but your journey will keep going and it will always be an adventure. Just get your teammates on your side too. So keep networking, keep getting involved, and Dawn is a huge, great resource. And feel free, I'm sure everyone here would say you're more than welcome to email us or talk to us at any other time too. Sorry guys, I added you in there.
And I hope to reach out and confirm that with everybody, and then provide students' email addresses, your email addresses, if that's okay with you to reach out. So, all right. So, any last burning questions from the students in the room?
How do you get contact with somebody you want?
So the question would be about how to get in contact with somebody that you want to shadow. So how did you do your shadowing? How did you set that up? How did that work for you?
I just called, if I was in college or back home, I just called a couple area clinics, explained to them who I was. So, a college student out looking into the field, was wondering if I might be able just to shadow for a short period of time, just kind of learn a little bit more about the field. And the odds are more people are more than willing to help you out that way. That's kind of how I got into it.
Yep. And then for my pediatric experience at the hospital, I was at Children's Hospital and Clinics in Minnesota. I just signed up to be a volunteer at the hospital. And then I told in my volunteer interview that I wanted to see PT as well. So, but now it's all applications. So just go and look online for the hospitals at least.
Yeah, I would echo what Mike says, and just that's what I did at least, was call. I think Andrea probably had a lot more experience than I did when she was volunteering, but call, and if there's anyone, family, friends that are working in an area of interest, reach out to them too.
Oh, and the one last thing is do look at who you're applying to, because everyone has different shadowing qualifications. And I know at least like some of the California schools, that you have to have like inpatient and you have to have outpatient and you have to have like multiple different fields if you're thinking PT. But that's also with PA and MD. I can't say anything about Chiro, sorry. But yeah, so definitely look ahead too, because it takes time and it takes time to organize and figure it all out too.
And I can also tell you that the cane files, so over in XPD, Benny Johnny alums that are practicing in the different fields, and as these three will attest, Benny Johnny grads love helping Benny Johnny students. So if you have questions, reaching out, email is a great place to start. If there's an opportunity, my bet is they would love to have a cup of coffee with you if that's something that you do, and just talk, or if it's possible to get into the clinic with you. I'd personally like to fly out to Stanford and spend the afternoon with Marie. Maybe we can make that happen. But to get out there, that would be awesome. But again, they would love to be able to help you out. So, okay. All right. Panelists, thank you so very much for taking the time to talk with our students here. Really appreciate it. Okay. All right. Here we go. Yeah, get the class. All right. Thank you very much.